Welcome to Empowering the Next Generation podcast. I am Helen Veru. This podcast is dedicated to help anyone connected to preteens and teens to give them tools, empower and inspire teachers, high school senior leaders, and parents to build the future leaders of tomorrow. We discuss about controversial and relevant topics related to the world of education, the main problems you are facing, and solutions to help you navigate your journey. We want to make a positive change in education by bringing on experts that will give you a different perspective on how you can solve the hardship you are facing today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Empowering the Next Generation podcast with me, Coach. And I'm so glad that you are tuning in for another episode today. And we have an amazing speaker, as I already give you people of expertise who actually know their craft and their message. So if you are an educator who wants to really ignite your school community, develop leaders, and create meaningful connection, this is a podcast for you. And if you want to grow from being an educator and becoming a CEO, I would encourage you to join my free masterclass and also to get my free guide in my free Facebook community. So thank you everyone for joining in for this amazing episode again with Mr. Curtis Hewson. He's an award-winning former administrator and a teacher. He's as well as teaching faculty at the post-secondary level. He's a co-founder of Jigsaw Learning, a co-author of the text Collaborative Response, 3 foundational components that transform how we respond to the needs of learners, Corwin 2022. And currently, he works with We Respond to the Needs of Learners districts and schools nationally and internationally, establishing collaborative response frameworks and interacting with thousands of educators annually. So welcome on board, Curtis.
Hi,
I
Helen.
wanted
So
to
great to be with you today.
Thank you. I wanted to say Chris, and I'm like, no, this is not Chris, Curtis. So
Curtis. Yeah,
thank you
that's
so
right.
much for being with us. I love your energy. I love your heart for education. And I just want you to be authentic in this conversation and just share. I saw in your biography that you are an administrator, a teacher, and
Hmm.
now you are an educational consultant. So how did that journey started? Why did you decide to really become an educational consultant?
I have to share with you and your audience, it was not a path that was carefully sculpted out in front of me. It came from being an administrator in a school, and we were looking at how can we work together to best support the needs of students. We started to put team structures in place. We started to use data really effectively to respond. We were developing school-wide interventions and supports, and we started to see huge success for kids and also staff just feeling more connected. The level of well-being just increased, and we started to have people come to visit the school to see what was happening there. I started to get requests out to come and share in other schools how we were doing this. Then in time, I started to get requests from school divisions that said, could you come and work with all of our schools to do this? And so it reached a point where it was really hard to respond to those requests while still engaged in a school full time. I was then teaching at the post-secondary level for a number of years, having moved from that school, but I was still getting all of these requests, all these questions, people asking, how do we do this? We ended up writing it all down, my wife Lorna and I, into our first book that would explain what we did within the school, and the requests just kept coming and eventually reached a point of I can't engage in this work while also holding another full-time position, and so made the leap into doing this now full-time. So now both my wife and I, as part of our organization Jigsaw Learning, we work with schools and school divisions across the world around this framework that we've come to refer to as collaborative response.
I love that. I love that. Why Jigsaw?
When we were trying to put together and explain all the different elements that were coming into play, it was difficult for people to see how it all connected. And so that idea of a jigsaw really started to make sense, like a jigsaw puzzle that
Mm,
it takes time to put the pieces together, but when you do, the picture starts to become more and more clear as you add more and more pieces. So we just wanted to recognize that this is difficult connected work, and like a jigsaw, we have to look for the connections between
I
each of
love
the
that.
pieces we're doing in our schools.
See, one of my goals is really to meet people that have share the same values as me, and I love your heart for people. You shared what you were doing in your school, and you talked
Mhm.
about really healing and helping other people to really be more happy in their job.
Yes.
Well-being is so key, and I love that you actually put all this stuff together to make sure that your staff and the people around you really felt connected and they adapted to what you were offering to them. So thank you so much for actually stepping into this, because now you are sharing with the world what you're doing. So you've worked with schools and districts around the world implementing
Hmm.
collaborative response and frameworks. So many schools already engage in professional learning communities. So why isn't
Mhm.
it that structure alone enough to drive meaningful success for both student and educator?
Yeah, I love this question, Helen, because at the time we were putting in place what the literature and what Richard Dufour would have called a true professional learning community. We were looking at those four foundational questions of what is it we want students to know? How will we know if they've learned it? What will we do if they don't? And what do we do if they already know? And
Hmm.
here's what we were finding. We were finding that as we were engaging in those teams, there was some really, really good work happening. Then there was also, we had a team where any students that needed support in addition to or beyond the classroom, they could refer those students to this team. And we would then look at, and it included myself, my assistant principal, a learning support teacher, and a family school liaison. We would look at how we could intervene, how we could help support. Sometimes it was about responding to the students, sometimes it was about helping to support the teacher. And what we were finding is even though there was great work happening in professional learning communities, this school support team, we were getting overwhelmed with the number of referrals that were coming or needs, and teachers that would legitimately say, I've tried everything. What could we do? And we started to understand that, when this teacher says they've tried everything, there's actually some strategies that this person four doorways down the hall utilizes very successfully, but we don't have a way for them to connect because those two people are not part of the same PLC structure that we had. And so we began to look at how could we create one more layer of team, and we talk about these layers of team, one more layer of team where you could come in and Helen would say, I have a student and I'm seeing this as a challenge. And then others could say, yes, I have a student like that too. And we could connect and then say, all right, what could we do? And open up to people's toolboxes. We found by putting that layer of team into place, everyone's capacity started growing. All of a sudden, the centuries of teaching experience that we had collectively in the building, we were leveraging that so much more effectively for us. And in time, less and less students began reaching that school support team layer. So we talk about in our collaborative response work the idea of layers of team, and we've come to discover that in any school that is having success through this framework, we look at four layers of team with the PLCs being the first foundational layer. But
Sweet.
again,
Yeah, because I know that you have a lot to say about this, but I want like the audience to really
yeah,
process with us the thought process as well, because I feel like what you're saying is just amazing. I love how you talk about the framework, but isn't it sometimes overwhelming for teachers to have another layer of teamwork?
yeah.
Because they already have so much, and now you tell them, okay, let's bridge out another framework to help you bridge the gap in your learners. So isn't
Yeah, absolutely.
were they not really overwhelmed by that as well? So can you share the pros and cons?
Yeah, you bet. So, what we find through this is that collaborative team meeting that I described, where people from different PLC teams, for instance, could come together. We're not talking about that happening every week or every 2 weeks.
Okay.
We're usually saying that's once a month. So in the
Okay.
course of a school year, we might engage in that conversation 8 or 9
Okay.
times potentially.
Okay.
And we often say it might take the place of a PLC. If you have PLCs meeting on a regular basis, it might take the place of one of those in time. But here's what we find, Helen. We find that once people begin to engage, the structure and the process of these meetings becomes so focused and
Okay.
so intentional that, and I know this will be hard for people to understand because I know there's people listening going, ugh, meetings.
Yes,
And
exactly.
more
So,
meetings.
but I
We
like that. I like that it's intentional, as you were saying. It's just really
and
focused.
Yeah, and we really say we have 40 minutes for this time or whatever that looks like in your school. We're going to maximize it. And we find that people over time become not only looking forward to these conversations, but seeing that it's having an impact. I'm a big believer, and I've seen it over and over, Helen, that educators are amazing people. And I don't think they're afraid of hard work. I think we're afraid of hard work that doesn't see impact. If
Sweet.
I'm
I like that.
working hard and I'm not seeing the needle move for students, that can be really discouraging. That can impact my well-being. But when I'm putting in the efforts that I'm putting in because I want each student to succeed and I start to see that collective impact, that's that's spirit lifting. That's empowering here for us. And we
Yes.
see that over and over and over again. I can
So
remember one of our staff members saying, I go home every day exhausted, but I can't wait to come back tomorrow because I know I'm making a difference for kids.
nice. So at the heart of your work is the idea of intentional collaboration. So how a
Mhm.
collaborative team meeting different from the typical meeting schools have about students? What is an idea of that?
Yeah, so in each one of these layers, we talk about structures that we put into place. Simple things like, are there norms established that we've said out loud and we agree? And then even when we start a meeting, we say, okay, let's pick one that we'll practice today. It sounds like a small thing, but it helps us collectively. We establish roles so that in this meeting, everybody knows I'm facilitating, you're taking notes, this person's a timekeeper who's going to keep us on track for it. We have a clear agenda so that it's predictable for what we're able to do. And then in this collaborative team meeting, this is what it looks like, Helen. Everybody comes ready with a student to celebrate and a student of concern. And we say, all right, timer. After we've set our norms, and
Hmm.
once teams get really comfortable with the process, these just seem like natural things that, well, wouldn't everybody do this when they're meeting? And no, they don't. So we then say, all right, Helen, who's a student that you've brought? And as quickly as possible, what's a celebration that you're seeing? And when you say, I have a student who has just accelerated in their reading. They've grown 3 reading levels since the last time we assessed. Then we ask the most important question is, what do you think you did that led to that success? What we're trying to do is have people articulate through reflection, what are the things they're doing that are having success? And when you say, well, I've done these 2 or 3 things in the class that I think is having an impact, others in the room are able to jump in. Maybe they ask you questions. Maybe they're sitting there going, oh, that's a brilliant idea. That's a great way of doing that. And when someone says, I didn't really do anything, the parent just really got more involved, then we come back and say, okay, what do you think you did that led to the parent getting more involved? So we start with those celebrations, and we found that starting celebrations for meetings becomes really, really, really powerful for us. And then we jump into, all right, Helen, I know you've brought a student of concern. Don't say their name yet. What is a key concern that you're noticing for them or that you're seeing? And in time, we have data that helps us in answering this question. When you say the student I'm thinking of right now, I cannot get them to stay on task when working independently. They get started and about 20 seconds, then they're distracted and they're off and usually disturbing others. So we say, okay, key issue is on task stamina when working independently. Have we got it? And when you say, yep, that's what I'm dealing with right now, then we say to everyone else in the room, and there's probably anywhere from 3 to 5 teachers and maybe some support staff, an administrator. I always loved being in these meetings to help throw ideas around and to bring everybody else in. We say to everyone else, all right, everyone think of of your class and write down the name of a student where you're also seeing that happening. What this does is it reinforces that, Helen, you're not a lousy teacher. All of us have this concern that comes up. And you'll notice that we've not mentioned the names of students yet because I bet you've been in conversations where if somebody says, I'd like to talk about Curtis, everyone in the room starts to focus on, oh, I taught his sister. I taught his mother. It goes all different directions. So we say, all right, we all have a student in mind now. Let's set the timer for 8 minutes and everyone go. What are things that you do when a student is having trouble staying on task? And you say, I use visual timers in my classroom up on my projector. And somebody else says, oh, I do something like that, but I have sand timers that I use for students. And someone else says, I actually get the kids to set a goal of here's how long I'm going to be able to work on my own today. And then tomorrow we try and add 10 seconds to it. And somebody else says, I use checklists for this. Somebody else says, I usually make sure that the kids have a peer partner that they can use to help one another. We throw out all these different ideas and then we say, all right, now, Helen, you started this conversation. Who is the student you're thinking of? Just the name. And what's one thing that you want to try? And when you say, okay, I have Josiah, and the one thing I really like Anthony's idea that they shared, I'm going to try that in my classroom. Now, we might say, do you think you'll need help with that? We often see that when people first start these meetings, they'll commit to actions that are pretty well within their toolbox, within something they're comfortable with. But over time, we see people start to stretch. People start to say, I like Helen's idea, but I don't know how to do that. And we say that's okay because everyone in this room is an expert, but everyone is a learner as well. But through this conversation, we are walking away with actions. And then we turn to the next teacher and say, all right, you wrote down a name. Who is it? And what's one thing that you'd like to try for them? And through the course of this meeting, that's one key issue conversation. We might get through 3 to 5 different key issues because then we'll turn and say, all right, teacher B, who's a student, don't say their name, and what's a key issue that you're seeing for them? And we do the process again. And all that it's doing, Helen, is giving a chance for everyone to open up their toolbox, to learn from one another, to try things. And when you say, I have a visual timer that I've put up that counts backwards and shows the red amount of time that we have left, I go, oh, I used to do that. That's a great idea. Why? I don't know why I stopped doing that. Well, it's because our classrooms are complex places and teachers are amazing people. When we put them together, the innovation and creativity and solution focused mindsets is amazing.
I
This
love
meeting
that.
becomes really, really powerful.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And when you were talking, I really heard the word coaching. And I feel like as an administrator, you were a coach already. You didn't realize that you had already those tools inside of you,
Mhm.
but you had that mindset of a coach leader where you wanted to really bring solutions to the meetings and you really wanted to support your team. So I love the idea that you shared about celebration and about the key concern
Mhm.
and how they could actually take one of the solution that they shared during the meeting and they can implement it and see how they could implement it as well. So
Mhm.
this is just great. I love how you actually used, you didn't create something new, you actually use the teachers in your community to bring forth what they're already doing and really collaborate and find ways to bridge the gaps in
Yeah.
their students. So
E-
let's
I was, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Helen.
yeah. No, I just wanted to, you wanted to say one more thing and then I will ask you
Yeah,
the question.
I
Yeah.
was just going to say I'm almost into my 30th year in education. I've been in hundreds of these collaborative team meetings in hundreds, if not thousands of schools now. And the most incredible thing is I leave everyone with an idea I've never heard before, or a website, or a resource. It blows me away that I think I've heard just about everything we could try in the classroom. And then I go into another collaborative team meeting and somebody mentions something where you go, interesting. I've never heard of that idea before. Teachers are amazing. Sorry, people in schools are amazing human beings. And that's what we found, Helen, is we had centuries of teaching experience right in this building. How do we leverage people teaching, helping, supporting one another in a really, really intentional way.
I like that. I know that you shared so much during this last question, but to summarize, can you share with the audience the three components that respond to the needs of learners?
Yeah, so the first is our collaborative structures and processes. So getting really clear on the layers of team that I started this off with. And when a school says, well, we do PLCs, great. That's your first layer. And when another school says we have multi-tiered systems of supports and we have case consult meetings that we do, we go, great, that's another layer that we have. So the first component is really defining your collaborative structures and processes. And this collaborative team meeting that I described becomes one of the four that are so critical. The second component is data and evidence. So when we get into those conversations, and I say in time, Helen, who's a student that you've brought? In time, we start to say, Helen, who's a student that the data is suggesting that we talk about? So it starts to become informed by the data and evidence that we have within our school. And then the third component is development of a continuum of supports and getting crystal clear on what do we all agree we will be doing in the classroom. That's our tier one. Then what are things we could be trying? And we start to write these things down. As we're having these meetings, we start documenting and keeping collections and then being able to define, okay, what do we do when we've tried all of these things and we're still not seeing success? What does somebody other than the classroom teacher come involved? So that continuum of supports is about getting crystal clear on how do we respond when someone asks the question, what should we do? We refer to our continuum and say, have we tried this? How about this? Here's the other. When we put these three pieces together, it becomes insanely powerful within a school. But again, where we started with this, why jigsaw learning? It's like a jigsaw. It takes time to put these pieces together effectively, which that's the core work I do is coming in and working with schools or divisions, usually over multiple years to
Mm.
build just an incredibly connected and powerful collaborative response. We talk about it that it's really about how do we collaboratively respond to the needs of students so that a child's success or lack thereof is never one person's responsibility. It's always our. These are not my children, they're our children. So how can we support?
I love this idea of our
Mhm.
community. And I feel when you were sharing as well that it's a system that you're trying to put in place. You want to train
You got
staff,
it.
you want to train people to think successfully and effectively on how they can create long-term success, not just 1 year or 2 year, but you want to really build them into that journey of implementing system that lasts. So
Yes.
I love that.
Sustainable systems. You're bang on, Helen.
Yes. Yes, sustainable system. So for leaders listening to us right now who want to improve their team meetings right away, okay? So can you share, let's say, two practical strategies they can implement starting tomorrow to make those
Absolutely.
meetings more focused, efficient, and impactful? Okay, let's say
100%.
three strategies, not two, two
Okay.
strategies.
I'll give you three, and I'll also encourage your audience go to collaborativeteammeeting.com, and there's going to be some free resources to help you do this as well. So the first thing that I would suggest is when we come into any meeting, let's clearly define the roles. Let's make it really clear who's going to be keeping time. And that person for each part of our agenda is going to say, all right, let's set 5 minutes for this part. Let's set 10, whatever that looks like. Let's make that somebody's job. Let's make it someone's job who's taking notes. Let's make it someone's job who's facilitating. I've seen some schools that have even introduced a role like the interrupter. And if I'm the interrupter today, it's my job to knock on the table when someone's going on a tangent. And when this person knocks, everybody understands that they're not doing it to cut someone off or to uh, be inconsiderate,
Rude, rude,
rude.
yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're doing it because it's their job. So that's the first
Yeah.
thing that I would suggest. The second is have we clearly articulated our norms? Have we written down our agreements of how we agree to interact? If we don't write them down, we work off assumptions. And when we work off assumptions, it can deteriorate some of our collaborative relationships that we have. So, for instance, if I assume everybody shows up on time and prepared for meetings, right? Not everyone may have that same understanding that I do when we write it down and say, this is something we agree to. And we'll even discuss what do we do when someone breaks it. So getting really clear on that. And then the third strategy, and this one is an implement right away. Every meeting, start, it could even be just 5 minutes to say, all right, let's discuss our celebrations and what did we do that led to that success. So I've seen this done in so many ways now. Sometimes it's about students. Sometimes it may be a school that comes into a staff meeting and says, all right, everyone, what are some successes that we've seen in our school in the past 3 weeks? And then we're going to discuss what we did that led to that. I've even seen school divisions when principals come together for meetings where they'll do the same thing. All right, share celebrations from your school. And when a principal says, we had our highest turnout ever for our last round of student-led conferences, someone in the room is going to say, why? What did you do that led to that? Starting with celebrations and asking that, what did we do that led to that success? Very, very, very powerful for us. And it sounds like a small thing. I used to
No,
think it was just about starting the meeting in a positive note, but it's way more impactful when we're always asking the what did we do? What did we do that
I,
led to that success? So
I
there's
like that.
three I would start with.
And it gives a sense of responsibility and ownership of
Yes.
what you've done, that made such a difference. And I feel like sometimes educators, they feel overwhelmed. There is so much things to do, and they don't really celebrate themselves and see the things that they do in class. So when you actually point that out to them and you say, what did you do to make that happen? They start thinking, oh my gosh, I really found something that made a difference in that child's life, because we tend to focus so much on the negative that we don't
Mhm.
prioritize the positive. So that's
And
so good. As a leader who is very focused into positive thinking, I think it's so needed in schools that we ask the right question to educators so they can unlock the capacity of their
yeah.
learners.
And
So
Helen, as a leader, I would also be looking for those successes. And when you say, I'd really like to celebrate Byron. He's made such a turnaround in his work, and we ask what you did. I'm also going to jump in and say, Helen, I think you're underestimating the power of your relationship with the parents. You've done such an amazing job creating a relationship with the parents. So, can you just take a moment just to share with everyone how you've done that? Tell them about your emails that you send on a regular basis. And so I can be planting those seeds all the time where I go, boy, I wish other people would do positive parent communication like Helen does. There's an excellent opportunity to help showcase that.
yeah, but I feel like when you're talking, Curtis, I could hear that you love people.
Yes, absolutely.
You really, really love people. You are not just any administrator. You were really a person who were dedicated to what your mission in life. And I feel that it's so needed. I feel as well that so many people are many administrators, not by design, but by default. And I feel
Mhm.
that you are right on point on the things that you've been. That's why those have been opening for you, because you really want to make a difference in education. And we need more people like you. I love your power of positivity when you share and you talk to the educators and you encourage them, because this is what we talk about in the podcast, igniting.
Mhm.
We need to ignite those educators. They do so much, but there is no word of positivity towards what they're doing. We don't recognize them. We don't really celebrate them. And you celebrating your team made a difference. And I feel like once you've done that
Absolutely.
in your staff, it's really created a domino effect in the classroom as well, because they treated their student the same way, they treated their parent the same way. So I love that. I love your heart. Any word of inspiration, last word you want to say to the audience about your three components, anything that you want to tell them in that journey of really helping them to respond to the needs of their learners?
I will just finish off with what we've found as a transformational um, driving motto, I guess. The idea that every child deserves a team. I believe that every child that comes through our building, regardless of age, ability, any of that, they deserve us to be working as a team. They deserve to have a collective, a collaborative response that's happening. So that's really been driving us. I have you ever seen the TED Talk by a wonderful lady? Her name's Dr. Rita Pearson, where she talks about every child deserves a champion.
Yes,
I
yes.
love that message.
Amazing. Me too.
Amazing. I also, though, wonder that if there's a dark side that that can take when teachers are working so hard all by themselves to be a champion for so many students, it's aspirational, but I think it could also be a systematic recipe for burnout if taken to an extreme. I think we can take it one step further for Rita's message. I think every child deserves a team that will be supporting each other to then be supporting each and every student for us. So that's what I would leave us with, Helen. And I'd encourage anyone, if they're interested, go to jigsawlearning.ca, and we have a number of resources there that can help with you as well.
I will put that in the comment section. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Curtis. And I just wanted to let you know that collaboration doesn't happen by chance, it happens by design.
Oh,
And I believe
yes.
with a shared commitment to ensuring every learner succeeds. So, anyone listening to us, I would encourage you, if you want to grow like Curtis into monetizing your expertise, join my free Facebook community so I can help you in your journey. If you don't know how to start, let's connect, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Curtis, for being with us today and sharing your message, because you are good. You're the goat for that. So thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Helen, and thank you for the great work that you're doing as well.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode, and make sure you connect with us on Instagram at The Case for Success. Check also my link tree and become an affiliate of the Success Guide for Teens Academy, a program that will empower your school community as a parent, teacher, and high school senior leader. Do not hesitate to reach out, comment, and share. Until then, see you in the next episodes.